Steve, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Happy to be here.
Always happy to have you with your rich history and knowledge of the state. As a fourth generation Willistonian, what was your favorite part about Williston Revisited?
Well, the first part that we were just watching really referenced the old brick church. And that has a personal connection to me because I was married in the old brick church. There's a connection there, and my wife, who's a Vermonter as well. We love the town, and that church has somewhat become a symbol of this small historic village. And of course, it wasn't for a long time. It was a church, and then it was vacant, and then the town owned it, and that's just a great story about these young folks, these high school students and college students coming together to restore that church and then turn it over to the town as an asset that the town can use. And of course, now it's this rich resource, and I think coming up soon they're going to have their Old Brick Church music series that happens on a monthly basis, and those are lots of fun to go to, and a very interesting piece.
You have so many personal ties to Williston. Obviously, being a fourth generation Willistonian, as we already said, your kids, they're being raised in Williston as well. Such rich history in this town, but Williston really pulls in a lot of people from around our region. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about how the expansion of Williston has really put the town on the map.
Well, we say put it on the map. You say, how did it put us on the map? And it's so interesting going around the state, and I think this is echoed in the piece as well, and talking to folks and saying, oh yeah, I'm from Williston, I grew up in Williston. I go, oh yeah, that's where the development is. Yeah, I've been to Chili's, but Williston is so much more than that. 75% of the town is still open land. Now I live on some of that open land. Like you said, fourth generation in town. My kids are fifth generation. I went away, I came back because it's where I wanted to raise my children. But even just in my lifetime, I'm not that old, you can see the great changes in the town. And I think we saw that in this piece. And of course, the earlier piece that was done on Williston that was filled in 1992, you can see the difference, what happened from 1992 to 2012. So, for example, I went to Williston Central School. And I graduated from 8th grade with a class of 43 kids. There are 43 students my age and my grade that graduated from Williston Central School. My son is in 6th grade right now at Williston Central School, and he's going to graduate with 100 plus, 200, I can't remember the exact number of kids in his grade, now feeding into the largest high school in the state of Vermont. So quickly, in one small, short generation, the growth in families in Williston.
It's massive, but there is the economy here to sustain that. It's created so many jobs. People have come here, they've started raising their families. You're raising your kids in the house that you grew up in, that also your parents grew up in, that your grandparents grew up in. So it's amazing how much history, how many memories must be in that home alone. But tell us a little bit about your family and their history here in Williston.
Sure. Well, my grandfather and his father, my great grandfather, ended up moving to Williston at about the same time. My grandfather was a doctor. Worked up at UVM, and they bought a home out in North Williston, and my great-grandfather ended up living in a small village home, which later became Monty's Tavern or Ake's Tavern right next to the old brick church, so that piece was in my family as well. And my grandfather became very involved in town, especially in the schools, and was chair of the school board for years and years and years, and oversaw the building of the Williston Central School. There's the family lore that my grandmother burned down the old Williston Academy so that they could build the Williston Central School. So that's not in the documentary. We'll leave it at that.
It's in your family.
It's in my family history.
Right?
It is
Home
true that,
movies.
yeah, it is true that the Williston Academy did burn down, and Williston Central School was built. And my mother went to Williston Central School, one of the first students to go through that system. He was also chair of the school board when CVU was built as a union high school, and so my mother was one of the first students to go through Champlain Valley Union High School. And of course, I went through the same school system as well. And my mother is one of 5, and so it's a large family. We're spread around the area, but very much rooted in what's happening in this town.